I laid down in the hammock I'd spent all afternoon setting up, enjoying the breeze, when I felt a pair of chubby fingers gripping my fabric. The neighborhood fat kid was pushing me out of the hammock, gasping, "I want it," already out of breath from just talking. He pushed me off as my face hit the dirt, and he slowly climbed into my hammock, his gargantuan stomach pointing roundly at the air as he laid down. His massive weight was already bending the trees, so I got up and told him, "Bobby, you're gonna snap my hammock." He went to say he wouldn't, but that's when the tree cracked. The hammock snapped, and Bobby crashed so hard I felt a mini tremor. I facepalmed, but Bobby just lay on the dirt in the same relaxed position with my hammock trapped under him, completely unbothered that his weight just snapped an oak tree. I kicked his flabs. "Bobby, get up," but he waved his arm. "Nah, too much effort." He placed his hands over his stomach and rolled his head back, closing his eyes. I grabbed my hammock and pulled as hard as I could, but immediately realized this was something King Arthur couldn't pull out. Bobby had now started drifting to sleep, so I tried moving him myself, but my back only shot pain in the process. I looked at my hammock collecting dirt under his butt sweat and knew there was only one way. I climbed into my dad's excavator, my hands shaking with rage. "Last chance, Bobby. Get up or you're getting excavated." But Bobby was peacefully snoring in the dirt. I pressed the lever and scooped Bobby up. I raised him in the air, but just as I was about to drop him, I heard him yell, "Wait, leave me here. This is like a hammock." My jaw dropped and I climbed out, but Bobby was already snoring again in the arm of the excavator. I shook my head, then set my hammock back up. Now both of us were enjoying the breeze. I walked into class early and saw Elliot at Ms. Worley's desk pouring something clear and sharp smelling into her water bottle. When he saw me, he slowly pulled his hoodie open so I could see the weapon on his hip. I sat down and stared at the board while other kids filed in and thought about what he would do if I opened my mouth. Ms. Worley walked in smiling. "Good morning, everyone." She reached for the bottle and my hand shot up. "Can I get a bathroom pass?" She sighed. "We just started. I really can't wait." She waved me out, but the only way to the office was past the window in the classroom door where Elliot would see me, so I went back inside and sat down. I had to warn her from inside the room somehow. Ms. Worley reached for the bottle again, so I knocked my entire binder off my desk. Papers flew everywhere and half the class turned around. She set the bottle down. "Everything okay back there?" I apologized and picked up my papers slowly. When I sat back up, Elliot was staring straight at me. I tore a small piece of paper out of my notebook and wrote with shaking hands, "Do not drink the water. Elliot poured something into it and he has a weapon." I pressed it into the hand of the girl ahead of me. "Ms. Worley only. Don't make it obvious, please." She looked at my face and saw how scared I was. She waited until Ms. Worley walked past and slipped it to her low. Ms. Worley palmed it without stopping, and when she reached the front of the room, she glanced at it and froze. After a few moments, she picked up her phone. "Sorry, I have to take this call." Her voice was so steady, I almost didn't believe she had read it yet. She walked out, and the second the door shut, I watched Elliot's hand move to his bag. Then the fire alarm screamed, and Ms. Worley's voice came over the intercom. "Everyone out the back right now." We all ran out into the parking lot, and 30 seconds later, Elliot's voice came through the back doors. "Get off me. She deserved it." The police brought him out in handcuffs and put him in a cop car as everyone watched. I finally took a breath. A detective sat me down on the curb, and after I told him everything I saw and did, he closed his notebook. "You saved her life today." I pressed the guard's master key into a bar of soap the second his back was turned, holding my breath while the shape of the key sank in. My cellmate Reggie stood in the doorway, blocking the guard's view with his body. I'd been sent to prison for a murder I didn't commit, and my lawyer had stopped picking up my calls. I had to take matters into my own hands, or I'd be facing the electric chair next week. Every night, I melted plastic spoons over a lighter. Reggie snuck in from the kitchen, pouring the melted plastic into the soap key bit by bit until it finally held its shape. A guard walked past my cell twice while I was in the middle of pouring, and both times I shoved everything under my mattress, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. On the fifth night, the key snapped clean in half the second I tried to test it in my own cell door, and I had to start the whole thing over with only 2 days left before my execution. Reggie grabbed my shoulder the night I finally made one that worked. "You sure about this?" I nodded, holding the finished key up with shaking hands. "It's the only shot I've got left." That night during shift change, I slid the plastic key into my cell door, and it opened on the first try. I made it past 2 more locked doors before a guard's flashlight swept down the hallway, and I hid in a supply closet until his footsteps disappeared. I climbed the fence around the prison and ran straight to my lawyer's house to find out why she'd been ignoring my calls. She opened the door, pale and shaking, then stepped back to let me inside without a word. I followed her into the kitchen, where a folder sat closed on the table. The killer's brother threatened my daughter if I ever came forward with this. That's why I stopped answering. I didn't want you dragging me back into it. She slid the folder across the table toward toward me with both hands. "But you don't deserve to die." I flipped it open, and inside were the real killer's fingerprints, which had been matched to the scene, and I finally felt hope that I would get to live. I turned myself back in that same night, holding the proof in my hands, and my execution was cancelled. I watched Spider-Man for the first time and was convinced I could climb walls. I ran past my cat and straight to my pet spider's tank and stuck my hand in it, waiting for it to bite me. I was convinced it bit me and smiled because that's exactly what I needed. I'd begged my mom to buy me a Spider-Man suit, so I went into my closet and put it on. I pressed my hands flat against my bedroom wall. It didn't stick, but I wasn't worried. I was positive my powers were going to kick in soon. I waited a minute, then I opened my bedroom window and climbed out onto the roof. My hands gripped the shingles and I gasped. They were sticking. My powers kicked in. I started crawling across the roof on all fours like Spider-Man. But then I heard meowing from the tree next to my house. It was my cat. She was stuck on one of the highest branches. This was my first mission. I jumped from the roof onto the tree and started climbing. Branch by branch I got higher. The cat was right there, so I grabbed it with one arm. I felt like a hero. Then I heard my mom scream from below. "What are you doing in that tree?" I yelled back. "Mom, my spider bit me. I'm Spider-Man now." My mom shook her head. "Get down before you hurt yourself." But when I looked down, I felt pee come out. I was way higher than I thought, and if I fell, I would take serious damage. I tried to climb down, but realized I couldn't climb down and hold the cat at the same time. Then a branch under my foot cracked. I hugged the tree with one arm and the cat with the other. The branch snapped. I hit every branch on the way down and landed directly on my left arm. I heard it crack and it bent the wrong way. I was screaming and crying in my Spider-Man suit, but the cat landed on my chest without a scratch and she started purring on me. Mission complete. I was Spider-Man. When I came back from the hospital, my mom told me she released my pet spider in the wild. She pointed at my suit in the closet. I'm returning that suit too. Turns out I wasn't Spider-Man. I just had a really strong grip. I just marked 3,039 days on the wall of the group home when a couple came in and actually made eye contact with me. The husband was wearing Lilo and Stitch shorts, and I pointed at them. "That's my favorite movie. Ohana means nobody gets left behind." The wife giggled and hugged me. I almost cried because it was the first time anyone had held me in years. She whispered, "We'll be coming back for you." When she left, my social worker squeezed my shoulder. "Don't get your hopes up. You're almost 12. Couples usually want someone younger," but I clenched my fists because I needed him to be wrong. A week later, they came back with a jumbo-sized Lilo and Stitch. I jumped up because it was the first time anyone had given me a gift before. "Thank you, miss." "Thank you, sir." The man smiled. "Call us mom and dad." The woman nodded. "We'll be signing the documents for adoption over the next few weeks. Soon we'll be a family." When I went to sleep that night, I dreamt about all of us eating dinner at the kitchen table together, maybe with a dog, eating food that was actually fresh. But when visitation time came a week later, they never showed up. I blinked back my tears and tried to tell myself that something came up, but the social worker immediately walked over to me. "Been working this job for 10 years, kid. Seen this 1,000 times. Better to accept that parents either want to adopt babies or have children. That's it." I crumpled the Lilo and Stitch card I'd made for them while tears stung my eyes. Weeks passed, and I started stealing and acting like the other kids in the group home. I took from people's bags when they weren't looking. I walked around with a black hoodie and stopped smiling. When I blew out the candle alone on my 12th birthday, I didn't wish for a family. I wished to stop wanting one. And right as the birthday candle fumes filled the room, the door burst open. It was the couple, and they were holding the signed documents. I ran to hug them before I even processed what was going on. The man cried, "I lost my job 2 days before we were meant to sign the documents. The state froze the adoption, and there was nothing we could do." His wife stepped forward. "We never changed our minds. We never stopped thinking about you." The social worker set the folder down, and I signed before anyone could stop me. Weeks later, during the court hearing, my mom and dad walked into court in a full Lilo and Stitch costume, waving both blue arms at me. That night in my new room, he handed me a marker, and I marked day 1 on the wall. I was sitting on my friend Peyton's couch when I finally said it out loud. "I have the biggest crush on Nevia." Peyton put his Xbox controller down. "Have you told her?" I shook my head. "I just wish she felt the same way." Peyton laughed. "Careful what you wish for." The next day, Nevia started texting me every 5 minutes. I told myself it was nothing, but then I looked up from my lunch and saw her standing outside the cafeteria window watching me eat. I waved slowly, and she did not move. I packed up my tray and hurried out the side door, and she was standing there waiting for me. My heart started pounding in my chest. "Were you just outside the window?" She tilted her head. "Yeah, I just wanted to see you." The next day, she cornered me by the lockers with her eyes red and her voice shaking. "I see the way you look at other girls." I stepped back. "Nevea, I do not know what is happening right now." She grabbed my arm. "Why do you not love me? I would do anything for you. Anything." People in the hallway were stopping to stare. "You need to calm down. Do not tell me to calm down." She was crying and shaking, and I started shaking shaking too. Then she went completely still. Her face scrunched up like she was fighting something. Then she burst out laughing so hard she had to grab the locker to stay upright. "I'm so sorry. Peyton told me what you said, and all I could think about was that horror movie we watched last month." I could finally breathe again. "The one with the girl who is obsessed with that guy and stalks him?" She nodded, still wiping tears from her eyes. "I just wanted to see what you would do." She reached out and grabbed my hand. For what it is worth, I do feel the same way. We were eating dinner when my girlfriend Mallory pulled a puppet out of a shopping bag and set him in the chair across from me. "This is Gary. He's going to help us communicate better." I raised an eyebrow. "Communicate better how?" She slid her hand into Gary's back and made him talk. "You don't listen to Mallory when she talks, so maybe you'll listen to me." I set down my fork. "Mallory, I can see your lips moving." She shook her head. "No, that was Gary talking." I kept my mouth shut because I loved her enough to give this a real shot, but I had no idea how far she was going to take it. That weekend, my buddy Dave came over to watch the game, and Mallory propped Gary on the arm of the couch as soon as he sat down. Gary leaned toward him, and she made him talk. "He's a man, but he still sleeps with a nightlight. Isn't that stupid?" Dave burst out laughing so hard, he nearly spilled his beer. My face went hot because the idea of Dave telling our friends about this made me want to glitch through the floor. "Just say that to my face, Mallory." She crossed her arms. "Gary said it, not me." After Dave left, she started making Gary talk about us as a couple. "You'll never be man enough for her." I glared at the puppet sitting on her knee, her hand still buried in its back. "Mallory, that's a really weird thing for a puppet to have an opinion about, and we both know it's you talking." She didn't laugh, so I decided if she wanted to hide behind a puppet, so could I. The next day, when Mallory got home from work, I had my own puppet waiting on the couch, my hand already working his mouth before she'd even sat down. "Hi, I'm Kevin." Mallory's eyes narrowed. "What is going on?" Kevin cleared his felt throat. "I just wanted to let you know you're single now. You'll never find a man who puts up with this." Her mouth fell open, and I set Kevin down gently on the cushion beside me. "Maybe you should date Gary since you can control him." Me and my wife gripped our terminally ill son's hand, trying to fight off the tears, but he weakly pressed a small metal circle into my lap. "I found this piece of metal, Dad. Promise me you'll wear it." It had Super Cop Dad written on it, and he used the last bit of his strength to weakly pin it to my chest. "I'm so happy I got to have you as my parents." He said his last words and fell back, and tears fell from my eyes as he flatlined. I walked into my station next morning, gently caressing the circle on my chest, feeling numb when my chief got in my face. "What's that stupid circle on your chest?" "Super Cop Dad." He squinted closer. "I'm throwing this away. It's unprofessional." His hand shot towards it, but I instantly stepped back, feeling my fists curl in anger. "My son gave it to me. He died yesterday." The chief went quiet, then shook his head. "Then bring flowers to his grave or something. But here you follow dress code." I was about to crash out, but suddenly our radio crackled. A 911 call was coming through for an armed robbery at 17 Oak Hill Avenue. My hand instantly flew over my mouth as that was my address, and my wife was at home. Me and the chief sprinted to the car, my hands trembling on the wheel. My heart raced because I was minutes away from losing my wife and son within 24 hours of each other, but I could barely even think because the chief just kept yelling about how unprofessional the metal circle looked if we made an arrest. We pulled into my driveway, and I immediately got out, sprinting to the door with my firearm raised. I kicked it down, not having time to use my key, and my jaw instantly dropped. My wife was in the kitchen, tied up on the floor with her face bruised. Her eyes burst open as she saw me, and she tried screaming through her gag. I ran towards her, but suddenly the intruder popped out from behind the kitchen door. He shot before I had time to react, and my life flashed before my eyes as I realized my wife was about to watch me die. But then the bullet hit the Super Cop Dad circle on my chest. It bounced back and lodged into the robber's kneecap. He fell to the floor screaming, and my chief instantly ran towards him, cuffing him while he shrieked in pain. I dropped to my knees, untying my wife, and we both held each other sobbing. "He saved our life," she cried into my chest. "Our son saved us." I took off the Super Cop Dad circle. It was dented, it was perfect, and it had saved our life. I squeezed it in my palm and told the chief I was wearing it whether he liked it or not. I snuck into an art museum with my own painting hidden behind my back, along with $1 million price tag in my hand. An expert was lecturing a crowd. Only a trained eye can recognize true art, while pointing at a banana taped to the wall. I nodded and smiled, because this is exactly why I came here. I was broke, so if a banana was art, my painting of a coffee stain was about to make me rich. I stood near an empty wall, and the second the security guard turned away, I slapped my painting on the wall, stuck the price tag under it, and slid back into the crowd. My heart was racing so fast I had to pat my chest to calm down. A rich collector spotted the new painting, so he pushed everyone out of the way and planted himself in front of my painting. His eyes went wide, and he waved the expert from earlier. The crowd followed, and the collector pointed at the painting with a smile. "This is exquisite. The craftsmanship must be from the 1800s. I rubbed my hands together and began began imagining how I was going to spend the $1 million. But then I saw my signature was smudged, and I froze, because without my name, nobody could prove it was mine. So I immediately slid over to fix it. I touched the smudge with my finger, but the expert instantly snatched my wrist. "Do not touch the art. Get this idiot out of here." I went pale and tried to pull my hand back, but the guard was already lifting me off my feet. "Wait, that's my painting. I was just fixing it." He shook his head, laughed, and started carrying me away. That's when the collector asked who painted it, and the expert straightened his tie. "It's me. I painted this." His trained eye had recognized the true art, and he had stolen my idea of getting rich. "No!" I saw the collector hand over $1 million check to that expert, and my hands started shaking. But the guard just carried me past the banana, so I ripped it off the wall and took a bite. Me and my idiot best friend Dayon rubbed each other in Vaseline at 7:52 a.m. because we were going to be late to work. There were no buses running, and even though we were 40 years old, neither of us had our driver's license yet. I turned to him. "This is going to work. All we have to do is slide down the road and get to work on time. Otherwise, we're going to be fired." Dayon was already laying on his belly and putting on his game face. In just seconds, we were gliding down the street like two idiot penguins on ice. Dayon and I started cheering with both our mouths wide open because it looked like we were actually going to make it on time, until I looked up and saw a pile of dog poop the size of a beanbag chair. I screamed, "Watch out!" and we both grabbed at a street pole to stop ourselves from gliding into it. But the Vaseline was so slippy, we slid off the pole, and we both landed right into the dog poop, mouths first. My mouth watered in disgust because it was in my teeth. It was in Dayon's hair, everywhere. I instantly stood up, spitting in disgust. Dayon wiped his eyes with his one clean knuckle. "We're screwed." I looked up to see if there was a bathroom nearby, but then I saw we were right in front of our work, and my watch said it was 7:58 a.m. I shook poop off my right hand and helped Dayon up. "If we don't walk in now, we're fired anyway." So we pushed inside and punched the clock 1 minute early. When our boss came out of his office, he froze, and I expected him to fire us. His eyes widened. "What the?" Dayon wiped his mouth and spoke quickly. The bus never came, so we greased up and slid here, and it was great until we ran into dog poop. But sir, we're on time." He stared at us for a long time, then his face went soft. "Everyone upstairs told me to fire you both 2 months ago because they told me you weren't committed to the job." He pointed at the brown trail we'd dragged across his floor. "But this is the most committed thing I have ever seen." He smiled. "I knew I was right. You're not uncommitted, you're just idiots. But you both make this job a nicer place to be in, so I'm never firing you." I stood there covered in dog poop, feeling more appreciated than I ever had in my life. Dayon put his hand up for a high five, but our hands slid right off each other. I asked my dad, "What are you getting me for my 18th birthday?" And he smiled. That day's still far away, so I forgot all about it. But on my 18th birthday, I suddenly fainted. My dad rushed me to the hospital where the doctor said, "Your child has a hole in his heart." Dad broke down crying, and I was sure I was going to die. But an hour later, he came into my room saying, "It's a miracle, son. The doctors have a donor ready." So they wheeled me into surgery. When I woke up, there was a letter on my bed from my dad. But as I read it, I started crying. "Son, if you're reading this, it means everything went well. Remember when you asked what I was getting you for your 18th birthday? Back then, I didn't know what to say. Now you know. I gave you my heart." I clocked into my job as a waiter at Chili's, and the same lady was sitting at one of my tables for the 3rd time that week, but I barely registered her. All I could think about was how my mom's doctor had called that morning to tell us there was nothing else they could do to treat her cancer, and she was the only family I had. I walked over to the lady to make sure she wanted her regular triple dipper, and she smiled at me. "You look tired. Do you get enough sleep?" I let out a little laugh. "What are you, my mom?" She laughed back. "I'm way too young to be your mom." She tipped $300 like always and left. I was too busy taking care of my mom to dig into it, but I couldn't stop wondering how a woman I'd served 3 times a week for 2 years somehow knew things about my life I'd never told her. The next week, she asked if I missed playing basketball, something I'd never mentioned to anyone there, and my stomach dropped. Either she'd been watching me somehow, or I was losing my grip on what I'd actually said out loud. I was running on no sleep, working doubles to help cover my mom's medical bills, and I'd never told anyone at work about my mom, but I swear this woman knew. She stopped asking questions and started leaving notes under her plate instead. "Hang in there, you're stronger than you know." One night I forgot her salad completely, and she didn't mention it. She just slid an envelope across the table. Inside was $300 and a note. "For whatever you need most right now." For the first time since my mom's diagnosis, I let myself hope somebody had my back. Mom died 2 weeks later, and that night I opened the letter she'd pressed into my hand before her last breath. I cried as I read that she had adopted me at 3 days old from a 14-year-old birth mother. A second letter was folded inside hers. "I'm sorry I can't keep you. I'll think about you every day." It was signed by someone named Marina Wells. My heart stopped because that that was the name of the woman from my restaurant. The next time I clocked in, she was sitting at one of my tables, so I slid into the booth across from her. "I know who you are." She started to cry. "I'm so sorry. I'll understand if you never want to." I grabbed her hand before she could finish, trying not to cry too. I wasn't going to be alone.